Okay, let's dive right into this because honestly, we're skipping the pleasantries today. We are plunging right into a masterclass on how to engineer a business that simply cannot fail. We're going to unpack a framework that took a totally broken, desperate entrepreneur and transformed their methodology into a system capable of generating hundreds of millions of dollars. This whole explainer, it's all about the architecture of an irresistible proposition, the Grand Slam offer. But to really get it, we've got to start with a story of a guy who was literally hours away from losing absolutely everything. So picture this. It's December 24th, 2016, Christmas Eve. Alex Hormozi is sitting in a pitch-black movie theater, but he's definitely not watching the screen. His heart is just pounding out of his chest. He steps out into the lobby, makes a frantic phone call, and a payment processor casually lets him know they're holding $120,000 of his business funds for the next 6 months. Why? Oh, just irregular activity. They tell him it's just a precaution, but for him, it's an absolute death sentence. And the agonizing irony of this whole thing is that he owes his salesman a $22,000 commission check that very day for sales he already has on the books, but cash he literally cannot touch. He wires that $22,000 to his salesman anyway. And, well, that brings us to the harsh reality of rock bottom. Just look at the balance on this screenshot from that exact night. $1,036.14. That was it. That was all that was left. His entire livelihood was effectively wiped out in a single brutal phone call. Now, this creates a massive open loop for us, right? How does someone sitting in a children's playroom, practically bankrupt on Christmas Eve, bounce back to build a $100 million portfolio? Seriously, how do you survive this? Well, the answer wasn't luck, and it definitely wasn't a bailout. It was a systematic solution. Hormozi realized that to survive and eventually dominate, he had to completely rethink the very starting point of any business transaction, the offer itself. He had to master a methodology that shifted the odds of the business casino entirely in his favor. Think about it. If the marketplace is a casino, you can't just be a player hoping for a lucky streak. You have to learn how to become the house. All right, part 1, escaping the commodity trap and creating a category of one. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the solution to that trap. Look, in business, there is a brutal night and day difference between drowning in a commoditized market and creating your own category. On one side, you've got the commodity apple. It looks exactly like every other green apple on the shelf. And because there's absolutely no difference, what does the customer do? They just buy the cheapest one. You are forced to compete on price, and the marketplace will aggressively drive that price down until your margins just bleed out. You essentially buy yourself a 100-hour-a-week job just to avoid working a 40-hour one. But on the other side, you have the orange. This is the core philosophy of our entire explainer today. Make people an offer so good they would feel incredibly stupid saying no. This is the Grand Slam offer. It's an offer that simply cannot be compared to any other product or service, which makes price shopping totally impossible. Let's look at a real-world example of this mathematical magic from a lead generation agency. The old, commoditized way was charging a $1,000 upfront fee and a $1,000 monthly retainer. Clients would constantly comparison shop. But let's look a little deeper at the psychology here. In that old way, the customer feels all the risk. But the new Grand Slam way, the agency says, hey, pay one time. Just cover the ad spend. I'll generate and work your leads, and you only pay me if people actually show up. Oh, and I guarantee you get 20 people in your first month, or your next month is completely free. Notice the shift? The agency absorbs all the risk. Suddenly, you aren't comparing retainers anymore. You are looking at a value-driven monopoly. And that mathematically multiplies the agency's revenue because when you remove the risk, you can charge 5 or 10 times more for a guaranteed result. Moving right along to part 2, crack in the value equation to unlock those premium prices. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the transition from abstract desire to pure, hard math. The value equation proves that the only reason people buy anything is simply to get a deal. They genuinely believe the value they are getting is worth more than the price they are paying. And this value? It's driven by 4 very specific, scientifically measurable variables. So here is the math of value broken down. To charge the most money possible, you have to increase the top 2 variables. The dream outcome, which is what they deeply, truly want, and the perceived likelihood of achievement, their certainty that you will actually deliver it. But the real secret? That lies on the bottom of the fraction. Let's compare 2 things. A $50 fitness ebook and a $20,000 liposuction surgery. They both sell the exact same dream outcome, right? A better body. But the ebook requires high effort, a massive time delay, and offers very low certainty of success. Liposuction, on the other hand, 0 effort, 0 time delay, and absolute certainty. That is exactly why people happily pay $20,000 for it. If you intensely decrease the time delay and drastically decrease the effort and sacrifice required from the client down to absolute zero, you literally achieve infinite value. But there is a catch. Perception is reality. The offer only becomes valuable once the prospect actually perceives the difference in these variables. And strangely enough, raising your prices actually acts like a psychological placebo. Think of a blind wine taste test where people consistently rate the exact same wine higher simply because they're told it costs more. High price inherently increases the perceived likelihood of achievement. When people pay more, they pay more attention. High prices force buyers to invest themselves, follow your instructions better, and ultimately achieve way better results. Okay, part 3, stacking perfect offers. This is the tactical process. To build a perfect offer, we have to actually map out a transition from a customer's absolute worst obstacles to a high-value bundle that solves everything. Let's move to this and see how it builds. You see, the biggest profits hide directly behind the biggest customer frictions. You don't just sell a core product, you turn every single point of friction into a fortune by offering a complete, inescapable solution. The source material gives us 3 super concrete steps here. First, identify the dream outcome. Second, list literally every single problem and obstacle standing in their way. Third, turn every problem into a solution. For example, if you're helping people lose weight, a mundane chore like buying healthy food is a massive obstacle. It's expensive, it's time-consuming, and it's super confusing. So instead of just handing them a basic diet plan, you create a foolproof bargain grocery system that saves them hundreds of dollars and cuts their shopping time in half. You aren't just selling a diet anymore. You are selling the total removal of chores. You just turned a boring problem into a wildly attractive, high-value life optimization. Next up, you use the Splinter Stack methodology. You take all those brilliant solutions you just brainstormed, and instead of lumping them into one boring service, you break them apart. You present your core product, and then you surround it with all these targeted solutions, positioned as incredible bonuses. When you splinter solutions into bonuses, it fundamentally overwhelms the prospect's logical brain. They stop evaluating the core price and start feeling like they are getting an absolute steal because of the sheer volume of bonuses. Every added bonus stretches the price to value discrepancy in their minds like a rubber band, wider and wider until it finally snaps and they absolutely have to buy. All right, part 4, enhancers, the psychology of sales. Now we add the final layer, the enhancers. This is your framework of psychological triggers. Scarcity decreases supply, making people want it more, like saying, hey, I only take 5 clients a month. Urgency decreases the time they have to act, which forces a decision today because the cart closes at midnight. Bonuses increase exclusivity, guarantees reverse risk, and naming expands awareness. So the crucial point is, when you combine your incredible value stack with these concrete psychological triggers, you create unstoppable irrational demand. Let's talk about the ultimate elephant in the room, risk. Look, every buyer is secretly terrified of making a mistake. The fear of looking stupid by making a bad purchase is often way stronger than their actual desire for the result itself. That's why guarantees are worth their weight in gold. They completely neutralize that stupid tax. A bold guarantee makes the prospect feel entirely safe parting with their cash because it essentially screams, I am taking all the risk here, not you. You can use an unconditional guarantee, which is basically a paid trial, to maximize your initial sales. Or you can use a conditional guarantee, where you promise to work with them for free until they hit their goal, provided they actually do the work. But what's truly fascinating is leaning into the anti-guarantee, stating proudly that all sales are strictly final. When executed correctly, telling a customer all sales final acts as a provocative badge of premium quality. It's this amazing psychological flex of supreme confidence, signaling that your product is so exclusive and effective that a refund policy isn't even necessary. Finally, we have the wrapper, the naming of the offer. Because if no one clicks, no one buys. Often, the market goes blind to seeing the exact same offer over and over. We call this ad fatigue. But you can defeat this by simply changing the wrapper to create a new story for the exact same fulfillment engine. For example, a generic massage service becomes the 42-day relaxing holidays challenge. It's the exact same back-end service, but to the market, it suddenly feels novel, urgent, and highly specific.
And that brings us to part 5, the resolution. Let's close the loop here.
By returning to that desperate December night, we can see how completely abandoning commoditized pricing changed absolutely everything for him. By obsessing over the value equation to drive time and effort to zero, meticulously stacking bonuses, and deploying fierce psychological guarantees, the author didn't just survive. He mastered a system that resulted in a staggering 36-to-1 lifetime return on advertising spend. Think about that. For every $1 spent on ads, $36 came back. That frozen, near-empty account of $1,036 evolved directly into a portfolio of companies doing $1.6 million a week, scaling up to an astonishing $100 million. The mechanics are totally clear. The math is undeniably proven. Escaping the commodity trap isn't just about business survival. It's about shifting the odds so heavily in your favor that you permanently become the house. You now have the value equation, the Splinter Stack, and the enhancers. So as you look at your own business, your own expertise, and the massive value you bring to the world, the final provocative question remains: what will your Grand Slam offer be?